So, how was everyone this week? That was such a dead good. You're like, good. Like, what was that? I'm assuming everyone's like finals school. Yes. I know finals are coming up. Was actually my last week of school, so I know. Thank you. I'll be here all night. I'm just kidding. No, I have finals on Monday. I only have 2 finals actually, because for one of my classes, I passed a final. And so I passed an exam, so I don't have to take the final. And then for the other one, I just have to write a screenplay, which is not a chore for me because it's very fun. So, before I start the message, I wanted to say something. I know this is probably something that we're all kind of sick of hearing, and I just felt, though, I should bring it up, though, and talk about it. I know all of us have been having a very rough month, a very rough few weeks with everything going on. What I felt God was telling me in my intimate time with him was just to take all this force that's coming and to flip it and use it to push us forward. I feel like a lot of us were just kind of like taking this as a setback, and it's not wrong to grieve. It's not wrong to mourn. It's not wrong to be in that place where you're just broken and you're a mess, period. And I just feel that we need to take this. We need to take everything that's coming and flip it to push us forward. We need to use this as fuel. You understand what I'm saying? We need to use this as fuel to push us forward in our calling, to push us forward in our destiny, to be more sensitive, to be more aware to what God is telling us to do. When God tells us to do something, we'll actually do it. We're not just going to be like, I'm kind of shy and I don't know what they're going to say. You don't know whose life depends on it. You don't. And I'm not just saying that just because. I'm saying that from experience because, for those of you who heard my testimony at Revive, I was an ex-suicidal and I was struggling with a lot of things. You can come talk to me after if you want to know. But I remember there was this one day that I was trying to end my life, and my friend, he's actually like an aspiring writer, and he still is. And he sent me this poem, and it was the first poem he ever wrote. And he was like, I know this sucks, but here you go. And I was just like, why are you giving this to me? I was like, okay. And I'm reading it, and I just started crying because he wrote it with heart. And that was something that kept me going. That was something that kept me going until the day that God intervened in my life. So I don't care if God gave you a gift and it's silly and it's small and it's like, I don't know if I should use it. I personally believe that God gave us a lot of gifts. I don't think God is the giver of just one gift. I'm pretty sure he gave all of us at least 3 or more. And I'm going to say this for me personally too. I know I'm going to be held responsible when God tells me to do something and I didn't do it. I know I'm going to be held responsible for the gifts I used and the gifts I buried. Because there are a lot of gifts I use, and there's a lot of gifts that I just like hide in the dirt. And God's going to be like, okay, so what did you do with this gift? And I'm just going to like dig it out of the dirt and spit on it, clean it, and like, here you go. And she's like laughing, because it's true. It's stupid. I don't give you an iPhone. You bury it in the dirt. I come back a year later. Oh, yeah, so how's that iPhone working? Oh, well, I actually buried it in my backyard. Yeah. Like, honestly, it just doesn't work that way. You use what God has given to you. So that being said, I just want to say, take everything that's coming, take everything that has happened, and flip it around, and use it to push you forward. With that being said, I have a video I want to show you guys. I believe laughter is one of the best forms of medicine. So if you guys have not seen, hold on. Yes, thank you. If you guys haven't seen this movie, it is called The Princess Bride. Yes. It is one of the best films of all time. So, all right. So, I'm going to play, and then I'm going to make a few points with it. So, if you will, please start the video.
We're in a terrible rush.
Don't rush me, Sonny. You rush a miracle, man, you get rotten miracles. You got money?
65.
Sheesh. I never worked for so little, except once, and that was a very noble cause.
This is noble, sir. His wife is crippled. Children are on the brink of starvation.
You a rotten liar.
I need him to help avenge my father. Murdered these 20 years.
Your first story was better. Where's that bellows cram? He probably owes you money, huh? Well, I'll ask him.
His daddy can't talk.
Ooh, look who knows so much, huh? Well, it just so happens that your friend here is only mostly dead. There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead. Please open his mouth. Now, mostly dead is slightly alive. Now, all dead, well, with all dead, there's usually only one thing that you can do.
What's that?
Go through his clothes and look for loose change. What's so important? What you got here that's worth living for?
True love, you heard him? You could not ask for a more noble cause than that.
Sonny, true love is the greatest thing in the world. Except for nice MLT, mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich when the mutton is nice.
Did you have that in
lean,
Scotland, Jessica?
And the tomatoes ripe. They're so perky. I love that. But that's not what he said. He distinctly said to blave. And as we all know, to blave means to bluff. Huh? So you're probably playing cards, and he cheated.
Liar! Liar! Liar!
Get back, witch!
I'm not a witch, I'm your wife. But after what you just said, I'm not even sure I want to be that anymore.
You never had it so good.
True love. He said true love, Max.
Don't say
My
another
God.
word, Valerie.
He's afraid. Ever since Prince Humperdinck fired him, his confidence is shattered.
Why'd you say that name? You promised me that you would never say that name.
What? Humperdinck?
Ah!
Humperdinck! Humperdinck!
All right. So, one of the best movies of all time, in my opinion. I'm so glad she was quoting it the whole time. I was like, oh, wow, okay. I'll tell you something. My little brother, when he was 5, for his birthday, I got him, like, this, like, fake armor suit thing, and it was just, like, made of plastic, like, he had, like, the helmet and everything. He'd play this movie, and he'd sit in front of the TV for hours and watch it over and over again. And he'd react to it, like, as if he was watching it for the first time, every single time. I wish he still did that, but no, he's too old for that. So the context of that video is, excuse me, still recovering. So basically this guy brings in his friend to the miracle worker Max, right? Because his friend is dead. And his friend was mostly dead. His friend was tortured by this prince, and he's like, I need you to bring him back to life, right? And I love the fake story he makes up. He's like, you know, his wife is crippled and his kids are on the brink of starvation. And he's just like, yeah, no, trash. That's absolutely not true. But I love what Max said actually at the first part. He said, if you rush a miracle, you get rotten miracles. How many of you guys know that if you rush something, you get a crappy result? And I'm just saying this for me because when it comes to school projects and stuff, I'm like 2 spectrums. I'm like an overachiever where I'll finish it the day of, like the day it is like assigned to me. And then there are other spectrums where I'm just like, I finish it the day it's due. Not even the night before, the day it's due. Like I'll start working on it. So it's pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I know. So that being said, I feel like many times in our personal lives, we want to rush things, and we're in a process, and God is telling us, "Hey, I'm putting you through this process right now. I'm trying to get a result." And we're like, "No, I want it to finish, right? I want to get through it." And God's like, "Do you want me to give what I have for you right now? I'll give it to you, but your life is probably going to be in shambles afterwards." It's just the truth. And I feel like for a lot of situations, we see a dead situation, and like he said, he's only mostly dead, so he's not entirely dead. I feel God looks at many situations in our lives, and we see it as a dead situation, and really God is saying, no, I see something there that I can fix. I think that there's still a possibility. There's still something that I can do. Does that make sense? And I feel like what we struggle a lot with is when God tells us something's going to happen, hey, this thing is meant for you. And the exact opposite happens. Something breaks. There's a rejection. There's something just doesn't coincide with what God says. And you're like, God, I don't understand. That's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. So if you guys are taking notes, which is all my girls in the back, I love you guys. You too, Jason. You too. I mean, if you identify as a girl, then, you know. All right. Sorry. So anyways, the title of my message is, Are We Patient? ? Are we patient? I know for me personally, I'm not. I'm not a patient person. I am very much, I want to get her done, and I want to get her done now. And then there are times where I'll try to get things done, and things come in the way, and I lose it, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, you're trying to get something done, and something just gets in the way of that project or whatever it is, and you're like, this is the last thing I needed right now. And still God is like, you know what? It's okay. We're gonna work this out. So if you guys have your Bibles, I want you guys to open to James chapter 5, verses 7 through 10. And I brought my physical Bible because I feel like empty if I don't have it in my hands. Like, I don't know. I need the pages and the cover. I need to like actually hold it. So James chapter 5, verses 7 through 10. So I'm going to cheat a little bit because I know we're supposed to be studying from James, but I'm not going to be reading from there, but I'm going to take a small portion for myself. All right, James chapter 5, verse 7 through 10. Be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until it receives the early and the late rains. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. As an example of suffering and patience, brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord before you. You know, I feel like if you read this passage, you may think, oh yeah, it's talking about the second coming of the Lord, which it is. But if we were to apply it to our personal lives, we can say, you know what? This applies to my life. God's promises, God's fulfillment is at hand. What God said he's going to do is going to happen, right? We're peaking in the atmosphere. But until then, God is saying, be patient. Like, yes, the answer's almost there. You're like right here, and the answer's right here, but be patient, right? And in verse 10, it says, as an example of suffering and patience, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. I don't know, how many of you guys have read through the Old Testament just a little bit? Just a show of hands, if I could. Okay. You guys need to read the Old Testament because it's dope. It's so good. It has like some of the best stories. But if you guys read in the Old Testament, at least some of the prophetic books, you'll find some of the most beautiful passages there. And some of the most beautiful prophetic passages about the Christ, about the Messiah. I'm assuming everyone has at least heard or read the book of Isaiah. How many of you guys know how the prophet Isaiah died? Do you guys know how the prophet Isaiah died? Anyone? All right, I'll tell you. He was sawed in half alive by his own people. The Jews that he grew up with in his own community, his family, his friends, everyone he knew, at one point turned against him and killed him. They sawed him in half alive. Talk about patience. Talk about suffering. Talk about forgiveness. Talk about God still speaking through Isaiah saying, Israel, I love you, come back to me. Israel, I want you, be patient with me. I'm patient with you, I'm patient with you. You guys keep turning away, I'm patient with you. So we're going to look at a prophet from the Old Testament, not Isaiah, but we're going to look at Jeremiah. And I just want to do a quick analysis of Jeremiah's life. Jeremiah, in his youth, was called to be a prophet. He's known as the weeping prophet. That's the book he wrote, Lamentations, which means to mourn. When Jeremiah was called by God to be a prophet, he was in between the ages of 15 and 20. So anywhere from around Jonah's age to maybe my age, maybe a little older. So think about that for a second. If God calls you that young, he calls him Jeremiah. He says, you are going to be a prophet. You're going to speak in front of kings. You're going to speak to my people. He is handpicked by God. You're going to preach repentance to your people. He is beaten. He is imprisoned many, many times. He is tortured many, many times. And on top of that, God says, by the way, you can't take up a wife for yourself. In other words, every single woman in the city is screwed up. None of them are serving me the way they should. I'm going to destroy the city. And if you have a family, you're going to be in a lot more pain than you are right now. Imagine if God put that kind of calling on your life where he says, yeah, you're going to be a prophet. You're going to do everything I tell you. And by the way, you can't have consolation through a loved one. You can't have consolation through a husband or a wife. That's not what we're taught in the Romanian community, are we? We're taught you grow up, you get married, you have a career, whatever, have kids, whatever. I'm not saying that's God's calling on anyone's life. What I'm trying to get you guys to understand is the gravity. Dang it, Kyle. You killed the moment. What I'm trying to say is you guys need to understand the gravity that God places on Jeremiah's calling. And I think it's pretty crazy because we look at the verse Jeremiah 29:11, right? For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, plans not to harm you, to give you a hope and to give you a future, right? I probably said it wrong, but you guys get the point. This verse is so popular in our lives. It's so popular in our media. It's so popular wherever we go. And it's so popular to speak this verse over our lives. You know, Jeremiah's life, most of his life was the exact opposite of that verse. Because he was harmed, he was persecuted, he was beaten, he was mocked. I dare say by his own family. I dare say by the people that were in authority. So we're going to talk about what happens when God speaks his good promises, his faithfulness over your life, and the exact opposite happens. So once again, if you have your Bibles, please turn to Jeremiah, I have it here, Jeremiah chapter 20, verses 7 through 13. Also, I'm sorry if my voice is very, not exciting. It's because I'm still recovering from being sick. Okay, so Jeremiah chapter 20, verses 7 through 13. And it starts with this. O Lord, you have deceived me, and I was deceived. You are stronger than I, and you have prevailed. I have become a laughing stock all the day. Everyone mocks me. For whenever I speak, I cry out. I shout violence and destruction. For the word of the Lord has become for me a reproach, a derision all day long. If I say I will not mention him or speak any more in his name, there is in my heart as if it were a burning fire shut up in my bones. I am weary with holding it in, and I cannot. I'm going to stop right there for a second. Do you know what that means? When he's saying, your word is as a burning fire in my bones. It's as a burning fire in my heart. What is that saying? That means God is telling him do something, and he's like, I don't want to do it. The same thing I was saying at the beginning with the gifts. God is telling him, you got to use your gifts. And he's like, I don't want to. People are judging me. People are rejecting me. People aren't listening to me. He's like, I don't care. You got to use it. And there's this just desire. There's this burning passion to serve the Lord in his heart. And it comes out, and he says, it is like a fire, and I can't contain it. You guys, that's how our calling should be. That's how our gifts should be. When our walk with the Lord should be so obedient and so connected to God that when God tells us to do something, we won't even hesitate. We won't even think twice. And I'm guilty of that because I don't think twice. I think like 20 times before I do something. It's just me. Because I'm nervous, because I know what it's like to be rejected. I know what it's like to fail. And my biggest fear growing up was never rejection or failure. It was loneliness. My biggest fear was that I would be lonely and I have no one. And I know that I was talking to my psychology professor, and he's like, things start when you're a kid. Things start when you're a baby. All these fears and everything. It develops at that primal stage. When I was a kid, my biological dad divorced my mom, and I guess that's what stuck with me. And I remember I'd be playing in the living room or just any room by myself, and if 15 minutes passed by, I kid you not, 15 minutes was like my threshold. If 15 minutes passed by and I realized I was the only one in the room, I'd start screaming and crying, and I'd run around the house looking for someone else. Like, for real. Like, that was like my biggest fear. I hated being alone. Like, it scared me to the core. That scares me more than anything. Jeremiah has a lonely life, and yet he still does what God tells him to do. So continuing the reading from verse 10. I hear many whispering, terror is on every side. Denounce him, let us denounce him. All my close friends watch for my fault. Perhaps he will be deceived. Then we can overcome him and take our revenge on him. But the Lord is with me as a dread warrior. Therefore my persecutors will stumble. They will not overcome me. They will be greatly ashamed, and they will not succeed. Their eternal dishonor will never be forgotten. O Lord of hosts, who tests the righteous, who sees the heart and the mind, let me see your vengeance upon them, for to you I have committed my cause. Sing to the Lord, praise the Lord, for he has delivered the life of the needy from the hand of evildoers. I think it's so interesting because Jeremiah goes from having these complaints, he goes from having these questions, saying, God, you deceived me, to saying, God, you are with me. And he starts praising him. He starts quoting a psalm. How interesting is that? I want us to do for you guys to get the context of this passage. So basically, let me look at my notes here because I'm so sick and I'm like, thank God I have notes. Otherwise, I can't remember this off the top of my head. So basically, this is the context behind the passage. In Jeremiah chapter 20, Jeremiah goes to the temple and God tells him to prophesy. God tells him to speak. There's this high priest in the temple by the name of Pashur. Okay? So this high priest named Pashur sees Jeremiah preaching and he's like, I don't like what he's saying. He goes to the guy, he beats him up. He imprisons him and puts him in the stocks for a few days. This is a high priest we're talking about who's meant to carry the glory of God. This is a high priest who has day in and day out access to the Holy of Holies, day in and day out access to God, to his word, to everything that is sanctified. Does that make sense? He abuses his spiritual authority. He abuses the gifts, the position God has placed him in to beat on God's anointed. And when Jeremiah is released from the stocks, at one point, he goes to Pashur because God tells him to. God tells him, you got to go back to Pashur and you got to prophesy this. So he goes back to the guy who beats him up and imprisons him. And he says, you're a terror to your family, you're a terror to your friends, and you are a terror to yourself. Quick question, what does it mean to be a terror to yourself? I'll explain. I was talking to one of my girls that, and she's like laughing, she's like that awkward silence. I was talking to one of my girls who I do Bible study with. I do Bible study with the girls ages 13 and up every other Saturday night. You're still welcome to, you can come. The Bible study is a Bible study to me. I don't care. But basically this, I remember she was talking to me and she was like, you used to do piano lessons with Tamara Blaga, right? And I was like, yeah. If you guys don't know who Tamara Blaga is, she's basically the mega mind of piano. She is a genius. She knows. She's a genius. Like, you can like tell her to do something. You can like play, she can play Chopin by ear, guys. You can play Chopin on YouTube and she'll listen to it and she can just start playing it. Like, I don't, like, that's a genius to me. And I'm still not there yet. Jeez. And I remember Annabelle's talking to me and she's like, you know, I remember like going up to my lessons and I see you coming out and you were like the most emo looking person and you didn't even say hi to me. Like I smiled, I looked at you, I smiled and you just like stared at me and you kept on walking. And I was like, no, I didn't. And she was like, yeah, you did. And you were like, you had like this thick black, like heavy eyeliner and all this stuff and your hair was in a ponytail. I'm assuming you got out of like basketball practice or something. And immediately, I know, screw basketball. And it's an okay sport, but no, I prefer volleyball or softball. It's just the truth, sorry. You know what, it was varsity though. I did all varsity teams, so I take pride in that. But anyways, I remember, and I was like, oh my gosh, I actually do remember. I was like wearing black, I was wearing the ugliest basketball shoes you've ever seen, and I was like super emo, like thick eyeliner. And I remember seeing her in like this white t-shirt and like cute Converse. I can't wear Converse because they don't look good on me. But white t-shirt, cute Converse, and jeans. And she looks at me, she smiles, and I was just kind of like, I just kept on walking. And I was like, wow. I became a terror to myself because I became a person I didn't think I'd become. I became someone who was closed off from the world, someone who didn't want to associate, someone who was fearful, someone who hated every single part of herself. Someone who hated everything about the society that she learned and grew up in. Someone that hated everything about church and the religion that she grew up in. I was a terror to myself because I became something I didn't want to be. And by God's grace, I'm here. I'm changed. So basically, that's what it means to be a terror. So here's my question for you guys. You know, I feel there are a lot of things that bring terror into our lives. So my question is, how do we deal with the terror? How do we deal with the people that bring the wrong kind of terror into our lives? How do we deal with the sickness, with the financial distraught, the loneliness, the singleness? How do we deal with the emotional insecurities and the comparisons? How do we deal with the arguing in our families, the spiritual dryness? How do we deal with the things that cause us the most grief? The things that break us down into tears every single day because God says, I'm going to fix this situation, and it still doesn't get fixed, and the exact opposite happens. And you keep on going like that for months, for years, and you're like, God, I can't do this anymore. How do we deal with that? God calls us to be patient. And Jeremiah wasn't patient. He started asking questions. And honestly, if I was in his place, I'd do the same thing. I mean, someone beats you up and then imprisons you, and it's like I was doing what God was telling me to do. You're a high priest. You're supposed to be siding with me. You're supposed to be saying, yes, Jeremiah, I'm interceding for you as you're prophesying. But no, he does the exact opposite. He does the exact opposite and beats the guy up and imprisons him. How do we deal with those people that abuse their authority over us? God calls us to be patient. And God says, you know what, you deceived me. You said this was going to happen to me. You promised me good. You promised me plans that would give me a blessed future, a hope. Plans that would prosper me, that wouldn't harm me. And here I am. I'm being harmed physically in every single way possible. Wow, my mic is really close, a little too close. That's how you get the emphasis. And he says in the very first portion of that complaint in verse 7, he says, God, you deceived me. I doubt that a lot of us have called God a liar, but I'm pretty sure we said, God, you deceived me. You said this job was supposed to happen. You said this relationship was supposed to happen. You said this girl was for me. You said this guy was for me. You said all of these things were supposed to happen in my life, and they didn't. They fell apart. God, I don't understand. You deceived me. And this is where the testimony part comes in. I was very uncomfortable. I didn't want to share this because first of all, I thought it was stupid. I was like, why would I share this? This is not relevant to anything or anyone. But if one person gets something out of this, that's all that matters. So 2 years ago when I was 17, wow, I just realized I said that as if I'm like so old, but I'm not. I'm only 19 and I feel like I'm 25. So anyways, back in my day, when I was 17, it was my first year of high school, my first semester. I got into a relationship with this guy, and he was a bit older than me, and we kept our relationship very low-key because we didn't want people to judge and be like, oh my gosh, there's that weird age gap. I was just kind of like, okay, guys, whatever. And feelings grew and whatnot. And I was going into my first semester of high school, and my mom's friend comes up to me and says, oh yeah, by the way, I have this chance to go to Romania. My husband can't come with me because he still needs to work some hours before he retires. Is it okay if, you want to be my traveling buddy kind of a thing? If you guys haven't seen Jonah VeggieTales, it's like the caterpillar, the traveling buddy. Yes? No? Okay. Thank you. Someone got it. So I was basically your traveling buddy, and I was like, you do understand I have school, right? I'm in the middle of my first semester, like senior year of high school. This is like the big year. I can't just ditch school and go to Romania for 5 weeks. That doesn't happen. And so I pray about it, and this guy was praying about us as a relationship. I was praying about him, and I was like, God, if it's your will, and if it's your will that I go to Romania and I see him and I do the church ministry and pace. If I do the church ministry and everything that you're telling me to do, because I was going to be packing meals for kids that, were financially distraught. They'd come to the church, we'd give them meals and plans and everything, and then they'd go back to school. And of course, in the meantime, I'd be meeting my guy. But I said, God, if it is your will that I go, then open the doors for me. So 1 week later, I go to my principal's office, and she's a very sweet lady, but at the same time, she can be super intimidating. Like, she can be really nice, and then she can just get really quiet and just stare into your soul, and you're just like, shoot, like, you don't even have to say anything, and like, you can feel like you did something wrong. So I go into her office, and I just sit there, and I don't say anything for 2 minutes. For 2 minutes, I just didn't say anything. And then she looks at me and she's like, so are you going to say something? And I was like, yeah, so someone wants me to go to Romania with them for like 5 weeks. It's kind of like a missions trip, but at the same time, she's also like getting some treatment done. Is it okay if I go? I know this sounds really crazy, but like maybe I could do some independent study. Like, does that work? And I just start rambling, and she's like, okay, talk slower. So I talk slower. And I said, look, if it doesn't work out with my classes and everything, I don't have to go. I get it. And she was like, oh yeah, absolutely, go. I'll just make your 5 weeks of absence count as 3 days. And I was like, how does the math add up? How do you make 5 weeks absence of school count to 3 days? I'm like, I don't even understand. I was like, did you go to school? I was like, sorry, just random question. And I was like, sorry. I was just like, okay, all right, so I guess I'll go. So doors open. I go 5 weeks. In the meantime, I get to spend time with this guy, and here's the thing. Him and I were very alike. Like, when I say alike, like, we could communicate telepathically. And our gestures were the same. It was just like, there was just like such a bond of unity. There was just that connection that just made sense. It just felt right. And after the 5 weeks, I came back, and we kept in touch for 2 months. And I was like, God, I know this is the relationship you have for me. I know this is the one. I know this is the one you have for me. And he was thinking I was the one too. We were praying about it. We were fasting about it. And 1 week before we broke up, spoiler alert, 1 week before we broke up, this lady who doesn't even know I'm in a relationship has a prophecy for me. And she's like, if the answer comes back with the no, do not be in opposition, because I have someone better for you. And I was just kind of like, okay, like, that's not going to happen. This is the best thing ever. Like, are you kidding? Like, all the right doors open. Lo and behold, 1 week later, he breaks up with me. And I can't describe the feeling. It's excruciating. But the feeling of a breakup, it's like, at least to me, it's like you have this glass ball. It's very fragile, and you're just like taking care of it. You're polishing it right. It's like a figurine you put on a shelf. And suddenly he just drops it. And he lets you go. And you're just like, how do I pick myself up from this? That breakup was the breakup that catapulted me into, God, I'm going to kill myself, and that's it. And this is the last time I'm going to do it. And that's when God saved me. If you guys heard my testimony from Revive, I went to church, and this man, random guy, doesn't even know me, doesn't know my name, doesn't know anything about me, came up to me and started prophesying into my life, and that's when I gave my life to the Lord. So after that breakup, I said, God, you deceived me. God, you said this was the one. I don't understand. All the right doors open. How do you miss 5 weeks of school? On top of that, just the connection, everything made sense. Like, everything was lining up. I was ready to go to school in Romania, and it's a lot cheaper too, and they have great art. Yes, and they have great art programs too. If you go Universitatea din Cluj, yeah, exactly. God, I love you. Anyways, but you get what I'm saying. Everything made sense. Everything clicked, and then suddenly it goes the opposite. Jeremiah 29:11 makes sense, and then suddenly it flips, and you're like, God, you deceived me. But what does God say? God says, no, I have someone better for you. God says, I still have plans that are going to prosper you, that are going to give you a hope in the future, right? So the question is, does this verse, Jeremiah 29:11, does it ever fulfill in Jeremiah's life? If you guys say no, you're wrong. And I'm going to explain. At the end of the book of Jeremiah, here's what happens. The kingdom of Babylon comes, takes over, kills a bunch of people, manslaughters a bunch of people, holds Jerusalem in a siege. People are basically eating each other, and it says in Jeremiah, he prophesies this. Jeremiah prophesies that you guys will be like eating your own kids. Yeah, scary to think of. And because they're just so desperate, they're like, I can't get out of the city, I can't do anything, I need to survive, right? People are being killed. People are being taken off to Babylon, and they do that. What's the number of the march that they do? There's like a 1,000-mile march or something like that. Do you remember? So they take this long march to Babylon. All this chaos is happening, and in the meantime, all this chaos is happening. Jeremiah is retiring in Egypt, on the welfare of Egypt. He's a free man. He's basically on a permanent vacation in Egypt. Think about that for a second. Even Daniel, the noble Daniel, who yes, he becomes a noble in Babylon, and God elevates him in his ranks, and yes, God uses him, he was still at the command of Babylon. He was still a slave. And then you have Jeremiah over here who's free. Jeremiah is still retiring. He has peace. He is in Egypt. He doesn't belong to anyone. No one owns him. Do you guys understand? It's not about the process. It's about the result. And if you focus on the process while you're in the process, you're screwed. And you're making it harder on yourself. I was talking to a friend not too long ago, and she was saying, look, when you're going through a situation, have zero expectations. But you know what to expect from God. You know what God's going to do. In the process, you may not think anything's going to happen, but you know what the end result is. You know what God's going to do. You know how God's going to flip this situation for good, right? In the meantime, as I was saying, we take all this negative stuff and we use it as fuel to push us forward. In the meantime, we use our gifts. In the meantime, we unbury all the gifts we buried and we say, God, I'm going to use it. God, I'm going to do what you told me to do, even if it sucks, even if I don't want to be here. And I'll be raw and honest, and I hate to be raw and honest because a lot of you guys think that I like being honest and vulnerable. I don't. Giving my testimony at Revive Night, that was like the most horrifying experience for me because I don't like telling people my stuff. I really don't. But I'll be completely honest. There are many times I come up here and I say, God, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there because I'm not feeling it. I don't want to be there because this is what's going on. I can't take the tension. I can't take everything that's going on. I can't take the fact that this promise is still unfulfilled in my life and I'm struggling with it. And I come here and I put on a face and I smile and inside I'm dying. I can't take it. And many times I come here and I say, God, why am I even here? All these people, they know what they're doing. I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay? I got here last year, and it hasn't even been a year since I've been here. I got here last year in July, and I was like, God, if it's your will that I stay at this church, plug me in. Put me in ministry. Do something with me. Because I was new to the faith, and I said, God, if you want me to do something, do something. I walk up to Jason Lukács, and I was like, hey, you guys need help on the worship team? He's like, boy, I'm glad you asked. He darts to Jason Koshman, and he's like, oh, you play keys? Great. Practice is next Tuesday. I'm like, I just got here. You don't even know my name. You don't even know where I go to school, what I major in. What the heck? And these guys are patient with me because I'm not good. You guys are thinking like, oh, yeah, she knows what she's doing. I really don't. Most of all the song tutorials I do, I watch on YouTube. I don't play by ear. I cannot. Notes are hard for me. You know, I know. See, these guys were patient with me. God was patient with me. When I ran from him and I said, screw you, God, I'm going to do my own thing, and I did, God still said, you know what? I still have good plans for you. I still have a hope and a future for you. How patient are we with God? Be honest. How patient are you when God says, I'm going to bring this? You know what? You're peaking. You're almost there. You guys, you're almost at where God wants you to be. And I was talking to Kimberly Vedesh not too long ago. We were talking about how big breakthroughs are coming. We're just peaking in the atmosphere. We're almost there. Big decisions are going to be made. Promises are going to be fulfilled. Big things are going to happen. And we're almost there. And if we give up now, do I need to say anything more? If we give up now, what happens? And I know this is like so cliche, but like I always see these like inspirational memes, and like some of them are super cheesy because I've seen them so many times. There's this like inspirational picture. It was like this guy who was like mining, and there was just like, if he had just gone like maybe just a few more inches, not even like miles, like inches, he would have hit the jackpot. And he didn't. He walks away. He throws the pickaxe down. He's like, screw it, I'm done. And he walks away. And this other guy, he kept on going. He's like, you know what? I don't know what's behind this, and he keeps on hacking at it, and he hits the jackpot. We're almost where God wants us. And I know it's so hard when God tells you this is going to happen. This is meant for you. I know it was hard for me when God said, hey, this relationship is meant for you, and he dropped me. What I'm trying to say is, when God says he has something better for you, what's up, peeps? What up, Noah? Hi. You took off your mustache. No, I'm just kidding. No, you look much better without it, trust me. No, but that's my spot. I'm just kidding. No, let him sit there. Jeez, just let him chill. Anyways, do you guys understand what I'm trying to say? God says he has better things for us. We're like, nah. This is already screwed up. This is already a dead situation. No, it is mostly dead. It is. Because God sees a potential to revive. God sees a potential to fix it. Okay? I mean, I could keep on going on and on about this, but I know for so many friends are like, I got rejected from this relationship. This happened. This person dropped me. I was supposed to get this internship. It didn't happen. I was supposed to go to this school. I had a prophecy I was going to go to this school, and it didn't happen. God, I don't understand. And God's like, you know what? I don't care what these people are doing. I don't care about the unfavoritism you got. I don't care about how unfair it is, because I got something better. And you know what? I'm going to make it work out for your good. I'm going to make it work out for your good. Ruth was married, okay? Had an amazing husband. He dies. She's like, God, I don't understand. By faith, she keeps on going, and God gives her something infinitely better. Abraham didn't have a son. He waited 30 years. All these obstacles came his way. Ishmael being one of them. And God said, I'm still going to give you a son. I'm still going to be faithful to you. Yes, all these crappy things are happening in your life, but it's okay, because I got something better. It's okay. I'm still there. Your answer is waiting right here. This person's not going anywhere. This blessing, what I promised to you, is not going to go anywhere. You can't do anything to change what I have for you. Do you guys understand? There's nothing that you guys can do, right? Nothing can separate us from the love of God, nor height, nor depths. There's nothing that can separate us from what God has for us. So there's no point to give up now. There's no point to quit now. And there's no point to stop hoping now. There's no point to say, God, I'm stuck in this empty space and I don't know what to do. You keep going. You're almost there. And I'm saying this for you guys like prophetically. I'm not just saying this like just cause. I'm saying this to me. I'm saying this to everyone in this room. What God has for you is almost here. And it's going to be the best thing in your life. And it's just going to catapult you even further into your existing relationship with God. Guys, I'm so excited. I started this message. I went outside and I was with Colleen, and Colleen was praying for me, and I just started crying because I was like, God, I'm so scared. I can't talk right now. I cannot. I don't want to do this. And I'm just so jittery, and I'm excited because I can't wait to see what God's going to do. Come on, guys. If you guys want, just please bow your heads and just close your eyes so we can pray. Father God, I just thank you for the joy you give us in your promise, God. I thank you so much that you speak to us in ways that are unconventional, God. Even if that means a rejection, even if that means a failure, even if that means a hurt or a loss, a death, God. You still speak to us and you call us back and you say, I got good things coming for you. Don't let this set you back. And last week when I was praying for the youth, I had this vision, and I felt like a lot of us just have these trash cans in our hearts. And they're filled with newspapers, but these newspapers, they're personal to each of us. Like, each newspaper was like an event that happened in our life, something that happened in our past or something that we're currently going through. And we're just like shoving it down this trash can. And God is just saying, no, you got to empty it. Stop shoving it, because that's you're ruining the point of the trash can. You got to empty it so you can throw more stuff in it. Let me take care of it. Give me your junk. Give me your trash. You know what? Give me your burdens. Give me your backpacks, because they don't have your names on it. Give me the things that you're struggling and hurting with most, and let me speak to you. Surrender everything to me. Surrender everything to me so I can work as I said I would. You guys can't climb up this mountain if you guys have a backpack of rocks. You're going to fall. You guys got to learn to give everything to the Lord, because you cannot move forward if you have this backpack of rocks you're carrying with you every single day. If you wake up and you think about this, about that, what happened this time, what I did this time, what occurred, what hurt me, what didn't. You guys want to walk into what God has for you? Leave it all at the cross. You leave it there and you keep going and you say, God, use me. God, give me what you have for me. Because what I want is not going to be good enough. I'm sure Jeremiah wanted a good life. But let me tell you something. The end was so much more worth it. And he knew that. God, I just bless every single person here. I bless every single person as they are approaching their calling, approaching their destiny. They're approaching the answers that you have for them, that they're out there. They can just reach out to it, God. And you're going to give what you promised soon. I just ask, Lord God, for grace just during finals, during finishing of school or whatnot or whatever. God, I just ask that your peace be upon us, your joy, your relentless joy, God, to just be upon us, to keep us through this week, through the next coming weeks, through the next month, God. Until you give us what you have for us, God, keep us at peace. Keep us at peace until the fulfillment of time, God. Just ask that you bless and protect each and every single individual, God, in this room. Bless our fellowship, God. Bless our families, Lord. Bless our church, God. May you use us for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you guys.